How's it going, everyone? You're here at Stock Picks by Tim, and I want to get into a couple of stocks that I haven't really talked about too much lately. Lately, the focus has kind of been like CleanSpark, Astra, Indie, and first I'm going to get into a couple of large caps, then we're going to move on to some Metaverse plays, also an ETF you should look out for, and finally, my favorite EV charging plays. Now, if you're new here, make sure you hit the like and subscribe. I put out daily videos, and make sure you check out the links below for some free crypto and stocks. And if you're returning, make sure you hit the like. It definitely helps me out, and let's get into this video. Now, first off, we're here at PayPal's chart, or PYPL, and I did a previous video about PayPal and a deal coming up with Venmo and Amazon. Venmo is one of PayPal's companies, but this is going to be big news at the end of the year, and I'll leave you guys a link below with the CEO going over that deal, and I believe this is the most recent footage we have of them still talking about this deal, so it is still expected. It should be by the end of the year, but make sure you check out that video. But getting back to PayPal's chart, we hit a low of about 92.49. From there, we just started taking off, and we peaked out at almost $123. Now, I think its current price of $116 is a great place to average in. However, if you don't have a position on this one yet and you want to be patient, look for this to come around 112. This does seem to be a support level that we've been trying to establish. We may come down if we have a red week next week. We may come down, test this $112 area. But I don't think it's going to come down under 100, and if it does, I will definitely be adding quite heavily to my PayPal position. We might be finding resistance here at the 200 EMA, so it may push us downwards, like I said, to that $112 area. Otherwise, if we break out of it, we might find resistance at the 300 MA, about $118. But if we can break out of that, we're likely to push towards our previous high. Now keep an eye on this one. If it does push towards that 122.50 level, once we break out of that, you could always go with the call, get in and get out, and just scalp that trade on a breakout trade. But that's definitely a potential way to go. And if you guys would like videos covering breakout trades, I could make it a separate series and just go into what I see in the market as the best breakout trades to get into. Leave a comment below and let me know. Next up is going to be a stock I haven't talked about in quite a while, and that's going to be AMD, Advanced Micro Devices. We're currently sitting at $108 as of this video. We hit a low of right at about $100, bounced back up, retested, came to about $101.54, and then just took off since then. And we came up to about $125, and now we're starting to pull back. I would argue that it's a great time to average in. And last time I talked about this was like right around this area. I said I'm looking for it to go under 100. And it didn't make it under 100. So you can look at this in different ways. You know, if you want to be extremely patient, there's no reason to get FOMO and feel like you just have to have every stock under the sun. So if you're an extremely patient investor, look for this to come around like, 105. And if it doesn't, oh well. But if you like the long-term prospects of AMD, I'd argue that it's definitely worth an average in at its current price of about 108, even under 110. But I would love for this to cool back just a little bit. I don't have a position in this one yet, and I'm going to wait to see it under $105. Might not get there, but I'm going to be patient. Next up, I'm going to touch on Facebook or Meta platforms. Haven't talked about this one in a while. I have a very small position in it, and this is definitely a potential Metaverse play. Now keep an eye on the 300 MA, that's this green line here. If we find resistance and can't break out of it, we're going to just likely trade sideways, maybe even come and test. Maybe come in and test about 210. I could see this coming down to about 210. I don't expect this to come under 200 personally. I think that was a bit of an overreaction, a bit of a knee-jerk reaction just to the kind of rough future guidance that we got. Now, I personally have been kind of waiting on this one. I want it to come to about 215, 210 or so before adding some more. I definitely like Facebook at its current price. And if you don't have a position now, I think would be a great time to potentially average through. But it does seem to be developing support here at the 200 EMA. And it has been on a nice steady uptrend since about 190. But I definitely love Facebook or Meta platforms for the long term. And I'd argue that right now it's great for an average in, but I'm being a little bit more patient. I'm looking for about $110, $115. And if it doesn't get there, that's all right. Now next up is going to be Matterport or MTTR. And after this, I'm going to be getting into a potential ETF that gives you exposure to a basket of Metaverse plays. Well, first off, touching on this article, we've got some bearish points and then we've got some bullish points. Matterport claimed it could generate $747 million in annual revenue in 2025, but to hit that goal, it needs roughly a compound annual growth rate of about 61% for the next 4 years or so. And its current growth rate, or what it's expecting in 2022, is about 12 to 21% growth. Its revenue in 2021 only grew about 29% only, to about 111 million. So it's not quite at that 61% compound annual growth rate, but it is still growing, so you need to think about that. They're likely going to be off on this 2025 number. However, things could of course change. I do at this current time find this 747 million annually by 2025 kind of a far reach. Could they get to about 500 million in 2025? I think that's potentially possible, yes. Another negative is it does expect their net loss per share to more than double again in 2022, and their current net loss is 46.9 million. And with their market cap sitting at about 2.3 billion, the company's valuation is about 18 times that of the year's sales. However, for a growth company, that isn't really too insane. It is a bit high, but not insane. Now, as for a few bullish things, their revenue could have likely been better if it wasn't for global supply chain constraints, according to the CFO, J.D. Fay. And he also pointed out that they're entering the first quarter of 2022 with one of the largest backlogs ever. And their subscription gross margin expanded to about 76% gross margin in 2021, and their total number of subscribers have risen 98% year over year to about 503,000, half a billion in the fourth quarter. Now, Matterport definitely has its positives and negatives, its risks and its rewards. And price-wise, we've been on a nice little run from about $5.30 up to nearly $10. This is almost 100% gain over about a month. Now, it is starting to cool down from its local top of about $9.50. It broke the 300 MA. And if this comes down, I expect it to hover around about $7.80, its next support level. So keep an eye out on that support level. If it breaks from there, you could potentially short it really quick, get in and out on a scalp, and you could always hedge your position. I would argue that while Matterport's under $10, I think it's a great time to average in, and I'm now just about fully built out, so I'm just letting this one go. Now, next up, for those of you that just want an actively managed ETF, check out METV, or the Metaverse ETF. And this is through Roundhill Ball. Now, it is an expense ratio of 0.59, which isn't too horrible for an ETF. And looking at their top 10 holdings, we've got Roblox, Nvidia, Meta Platforms as the top 3. We've also got Amazon in there, Apple, Microsoft. And this gives you a good basket of some potential Metaverse plays, so you can just set it and forget it. But this is definitely one way to go if you don't want to individually pick stocks, but you still want some nice exposure to the Metaverse market. Next up, we're going to get into the picks and shovels play of the EV industry. Now, as for ChargePoint, I did trim some profits here right when I saw $20. However, I do think we're going to push it again. But I did just trim a little bit to lock in some profits, just in case this does pull back a bit more. Now, if we do pull down towards this trend line, we're going to be sitting at about $18, and I think this will be a great place to start adding to my swing trading position on ChargePoint again. But it's definitely possible that we break out of this $20 level and start holding it, so we'll see where it goes. I just wanted to take that opportunity to lock in a little bit of profits because we have gone up quite a bit from about $11. And this has been respecting its nice upwards channel. It's been pretty solid the last couple of weeks. It has only been a little bit over a month, and it's gotten to almost 100%, so I figured it's been running quite a bit. I might as well take a little bit of profits. I do have my long-term position, and I still have most of my short-term position. I just wanted to lock in some profits and put some cash on the side, or potentially move it towards some things that I see bigger upside in. But if you're long-term on this, as for my long-term position, for instance, I would see this as an okay time to add, but it is fully built out. So I've been kind of focusing more on my short-term position, just kind of looking at some swing trades lately. Now, as for Volta, we recently had some insider resignation, and I did go over this in a previous Volta video, but I don't think I gave you guys this quote, and this does kind of explain things a little bit. You can form an opinion yourself and see if they're full of crap or not, but here it is. With Volta's listing as a public company last August, the board and founders mutually determined that now is the right time to identify new leadership with experience in managing public companies to serve the best interests of stakeholders and unlock the company's full value potential. Now, it's never a good thing to see CEOs resigning. And also, since they pushed out their earnings, that's another negative sign. But they did give some details on that, and I went into that in my last video. But, you know, as far as Volta goes, I have kept this to a smaller position in my portfolio. I definitely have ChargePoint as a larger position. I definitely see some opportunity in Volta. That's why I wanted exposure in it. But I'm also trying to limit my risk by keeping this to a smaller portion of my portfolio, to no more than 2%, you know, and that goes for a lot of these smaller caps. You don't want to just go 10% of your portfolio. I mean, you do what you got to do, but typically, you know, for me, the first thing is wealth preservation. I don't want to lose my money. And then next up, the next most important thing is going to be making those gains. But first up, most importantly, is wealth preservation. So keep that in mind when you're investing in potentially risky stocks. Now, looking at Volta's chart, we are hitting new all-time lows. We came to about $3 before kind of bouncing up a little bit. Now, I think this is going to be a point of resistance. It's $3.25. We'll see if we break out of it. We will see if we break out of the 300 MA. We definitely have a couple of things to have to break out of. And I don't think this earnings date is accurate. I could be wrong, however. So keep an eye out. Their earnings should be coming out very soon. and hopefully we'll actually get an earnings call so we can get more details about the insider resignation, what's going on in terms of future potential in 2022, their future outlook, things of that nature. So definitely look out for Volta and any kind of news on earnings. When you go to the IR, investor relations, there's no news regarding their actual conference call or anything. Now this one is still a bit of a falling knife, having trouble breaking over the 300 MA. And this support here we might find as a resistance. So I think once we break out of this, we'd push pretty good. But that's going to be the hurdle. We have to break this 325. We'll see where it goes. Now, if you're long-term on Volta, I mean, it's near all-time lows. And it's definitely a potential EV play. If you want more diversification, other than just having some chargepoint, potentially EV Go, even Blink, you know, you might want to have more diversification within. So when one runs up, you can take some profits. When one runs down, you can add in. But that's all I got for you guys. Just a couple of stocks to look out for. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.